And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
London is a Martin Wallace game, which you can tell by the fact that there's some ugly men on the front, and it's in this size box. Martin Wallace always designs these. London is a historical game of building London throughout history, starting after the Great Fire of London. But some people said, hey, Martin Wallace made a card game similar to Race for the Galaxy. Really? Okay, not really, but there is some similarities to the games. There's some interesting features. This is not a board game per se, as much as a card game. In fact, I think the board is almost a waste of time. But let's take a look at the game and see if this is one of his hits or one of his misses. Let's check it out. Here's the board, which isn't really necessary in my opinion, but what have you. At the bottom we have two rows of cards. You have one row of cards that you're drawing from. You can see what cards you're taking, and then when that row is filled up, you fill up the second one. When the second row is filled up, the second row replaces the first row, and then you start filling up another second row, etc. Then we have the map of London. Now this is the main focus of the game, is to build these different sections of London, and you'll put a token in your area. Each of these sections has a cost, and then it will give you a certain amount of cards for your hand and a certain amount of victory points depending on what section you build. And some of the sections have underground tokens in, or there's underground tokens that can be placed, which will make these worth more points. There's a geographical limitations on what sections you can build. It doesn't really matter that much. In fact, this whole thing, like I said, just feels a bit superfluous. It's there, but all the sections seem pretty similar. They give different amounts of victory points and different amount of cards, but la-di-da. Anyway, but that's the main focus of the game and theme-wise, but the main focus of the game itself is in a hand of cards that you have. Now, when I have a hand of cards, there are different actions I can take on my turn. One of the actions is I can buy a section of the city like I just showed. Another action is I can take 3 cards. But the main 2 actions of the game all have to do with the cards themselves. I can play a card in front of me into my city display, or I can run my city. When you play a card for your city display, each card is a different color, you can see. Some cards can't be played. For example, paupers can't be played because there's no foundation at the bottom. The cards with a foundation at the bottom, which is most of the cards, are the cards that can be played in your city display. Paupers and other cards like that have specific things that they can do. For example, the workhouse says take $1 or £1 and lose 1 poverty point for each pauper card you expend. So paupers make the workhouse go round. Historically accurate theme, folks. Don't shoot the messenger. But anyway, so when you play a card in front of you into your thing, there's a cost. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes it costs £4 or whatever. But you also must discard a card of the same color. So if I'm going to play this workhouse here, I need to discard one of these 2 pink cards in my hand to play it. If I want to play the shipbuilding, I need to discard a brown card to play it. So you need lots of cards to get cards out. But as you're going along here, you're going to be having your city display. And I guess I should quick mention some of these components up here before I talk about the city display. You can see there's victory point tokens that you'll take as the game goes by. You can keep them hidden. There's little player tokens that show your color and to show which part of the city you have. The money is little small tiddlywinks. I replaced mine quickly with poker chips. And then there's these cubes here. These cubes are poverty points, and you do not want poverty points. Poverty points are terrible and will lose you a lot of points at the end of the game. In fact, since that's such a major focus of this game, let me show you right here. This shows you at the end of the game how many poverty points you have and how many points you lose. So if you have 10 poverty points, you lose 15 victory points. And every point past that's another 3 victory points. Ugh. Terrible, terrible. Alright, sorry for that interruption. Let's get back to talking about the city display. When I have cards in my city display, okay, let's say I have shipbuilding and streetlights and saltzers in front of my city display. So let's focus a little bit there. Now you can have as many cards as you want in your city display, but you can also play cards on top of each other. And you want to do that because the fewer cards you have, the more efficient your machine is. As you play cards, sometimes the card is no longer worthwhile, or you don't want to use it anymore, so you might want to put a card on top. When I run my city, I can pick whichever one of my cards I want to run. There's a cost, is the first part of each card. So this card costs nothing to run. Yay. This card costs me a discarded card of any color, and this card costs me $4 to run. Then each card has a special thing that it gives you. When I run the Salters, I get $4. When I run this one, I get 6 pounds and 2 points. When I run this one, I get a point, and I can get rid of 2 poverty cubes. Yay. Then some cards, like these two here, show a flip side that once I use them, they're one-time uses and they're gone. While the streetlights I can continue to use. Now after I run my city, I'm going to get poverty points equal to the number of cards that I have in front of me, plus the number of cards in my hand, minus the number of properties or city sections that I have on the board, and that's how many poverty points I get. So you could run your city as much as you want, but the more you run your city, the more poverty points you get, and the more you're going to need to get these cards like streetlights, which will help you get rid of poverty points. So the game is really just going to progress like that. I should mention that the deck of cards, which is made up of A, B, and C, and you're going to be putting that deck, in an order so that the cards will come out at different points in time. But eventually the deck of cards is going to be exhausted, and at that point the game is over. Each players will have gotten victory points from different cards that they have run, machinery, as I just showed you. They'll get victory points according to the different city sections they have on the board. But then, hey, they're going to look at all the cards in their display, whether they're face down or not, and some of these cards that they're going to have in their display are worth victory points. Now, none of these cards are worth victory points, which isn't very exciting. But there are cards like the shipbuilding one here, and you can see down here in the corner that it's worth a victory point. And so players will be seeking to build some of these cards that have more and more victory points, like this train station is worth 3 victory points. They'll add those to the other victory points, and then they're going to get slammed for your poverty points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. One more thing I should mention real quick is that there's lots of loans you can take out. But if you don't repay your loans by the end of the game, you're going to really pay for that. And you get points for money you have at the end of the game too. So money does have a factor in the game. Getting a lot of money can help. But man, these loans, this is a small negative I have at the game. Not that I have a problem taking loans, but yeah, I do have a problem taking loans. It irks me when you feel like you have to take a loan and you're not sure whether you should take loans or not. But anyway, it's in the game. You can take loans, get the money you need to do what you want, but you better pay them off by the end of the game. And the interest rate is, eesh. I'm told that I'm too negative these days in my game reviews, so I will try to be nicer, okay? Wow, do I hate this game. Was that nicer? Well, here's the deal, though. I don't like this game at all. And I have a hard time putting my finger on exactly why. I also am not saying that the game is bad, because lots of people that I've played the game with have seemed to enjoy it. But this is just not my style. And I don't know if it's the board, which just seems to be there for no reason at all, or just the fact that I felt like I was stuck in this perpetual cycle of, get some cards, run my machine, the cards in front of me, I'm running them like a machine to get the stuff I need, to get more cards, to run my machine, it just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again, and just this whole idea of keeping, I don't know, it just seemed, ugh. I wasn't real keen on it, and I can't, it's thematic, it's interesting. I guess the theme, as thematic as it was, never really brought me into the game. No matter what I did, I felt like I was just putting cards down. If they had made some cool futuristic machine thing, or even a modern factory pumping out furniture, maybe it would have been more interesting. But, I'm sorry, I guess designers are stuck with this Middle Ages, or not Middle Ages, or Renaissance era thing. But either way, you can take a look at what I've explained of the game, and you can see if you're going to like it or not. I think it should be pretty obvious. There's a lot of people who like Martin Wallace games. They're going to buy it on sight. Other people, are on the fence, and for those people, you might be like me. I like a lot of his games, but this one is not one of them.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.